I worked the parking lots during those after-dinner hours, the twilight wedge. Just enough sun left that nobody notices me, but dim enough that the cheap security cameras just see a blur. I call the game open door, lock door. It's not science. Walk casual, try the handle, keep moving. Tonight, the feed and seed lot was the target. Farm types leave their trucks unlocked all the time. City folk think that country people are trusting. The truth is, they're just as careless. The black F-150 was dirty on the panels, but the interior looked dealership new through the glass. I checked the lot. It was clear. I pulled the handle. Click. Heavy doors swung open. Bingo, I whispered. There was a red duffel bag on the passenger floorboard. It was canvas, heavy. I didn't waste any time looking inside. I picked it up, tucked it underneath my arm, slammed the door shut, and walked steadily back to my Honda Civic. Home, sweet home. 97 cubic feet of stale fast food wrappers and dirty laundry. The bank technically owned it, but I was the one sleeping in it. I drove 2 miles out to a gravel turnaround before I even turned on the dome light. Then I quickly unzipped the bag. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I needed electronics, cash, something to pawn for a motel room and a shower that didn't require flip-flops. What tumbled out made my stomach drop. Jewelry. A gold necklace with a tiny cross. 3 watches. Silver earrings. A pearl bracelet. Jesus, I hissed. This wasn't a gym bag. This was a collection. The kind of haul that pushes a misdemeanor into a felony. The kind of haul that puts you away for 5 to 10 easily. The smart move would be to dump the bag, wipe the prints, walk away. But I hadn't eaten anything except gas station hot dogs for 48 hours straight. The gold cross alone was a week's worth of sleep in a real bed. I told myself I'd deal with the guilt tomorrow. I dug deeper. My fingers grazed something hard at the bottom. Cold metal. I pulled it out. It was a knife, but not kitchenware. It was heavy, with a thick wooden handle and a curved, hooked blade. It looked professional, like something a butcher uses to strip bone. I set it aside on the passenger seat because I didn't like the way it felt in my hand. The tapes were next. Loose at the bottom of the bag, TDK 60-minute cassettes with handwritten labels. Dates, mostly. I needed some background noise, anything to drown out the panic that was rising in my chest from the loot that I had just scored, so I grabbed one labeled 417 and shoved it into the tape deck. The hiss of blank tape filled the car. Then, "Please, I won't tell anyone, I swear to God." A woman, sobbing, wet and terrified. Again, a man's voice, low, bored. Then a scream that made the hair on my arms stand up. I punched the eject button so hard the plastic cracked. Fuck! I breathed it out loud, shaking. Fuck, fuck, fuck! My brain scrambled for an explanation. It's fake. A movie sample. Some sick prank. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The fear in that voice wasn't acting. I couldn't leave it alone. I had to know. I pushed the tape back in. My finger hovered over the play button. The silence in the car felt heavy, like weight. I pressed it. The woman's voice came back. Less of a shock this time, but no less terrifying. "Please, I won't tell anyone. I swear to God." Again. But now I heard what I missed. The pattern. The man didn't just speak once, he kept talking, giving instructions, counting. And the woman wasn't just screaming. She was answering questions, repeating phrases. "Say it. I deserve this. Again. I deserve this." Between their voices, I caught something else. A low, distant horn. Then another. Train whistles. Muffled, but clear. 3 short blasts, then a long one. I knew that sound. Freight trains passed through the south end of town where the tracks cut through the industrial district. I pushed stop, swallowed hard, pressed play again. This time I forced myself to listen, not to flinch, not to look away, even though there was nothing to see but the glow of my dashboard. But the tape rolled on. 5 minutes. 10. The man's voice never showed emotion, just calm instructions while the woman cried, begged, screamed. Then nothing. Mid-sentence it cut off. The tape ran out or someone stopped recording. No conclusion, no explanation. I sat there, fingers tight on the steering wheel. This wasn't some old recording from decades ago. The tape quality was too clear. The voices were too crisp. This was recent. Shit, I whispered to myself. I knew what I was holding. Not just stolen goods anymore. Evidence. The kind police would kill to get their hands on. Police. I could drive to the station right now, hand it all over, do the right thing for once, but then what? They'd see the jewelry, the watches, the knife. My prints were all over everything. They'd run my name, find my record, and I'd be in cuffs before I could even explain what happened. 2 strikes against me already. The third one puts me away for good. I could dump it all. Drive out to the lake, toss the bag in the deep end, pretend tonight never happened. But what if the woman on the tape was still alive? What if right now, while I sat in my car worrying about my own skin, she was somewhere with that man, hoping someone would find her? I couldn't walk away. Not from this. Shit, I mumbled. Shit. I collected the tapes, put the knife back inside the bag, and zipped it shut. I'd figure it out tomorrow. Find a way to help without destroying myself. There had to be a way to do it, an angle, a middle path of some kind. I slid the bag back under my seat, started the car, and pulled out onto the empty country road. The weight of what I just heard pressing down on me like a boulder. I couldn't pretend I didn't hear it. I couldn't go back to not knowing. And I sure as hell couldn't sleep in this car tonight. The next morning, I rationed the tapes. I couldn't take them in all at once, so I drive a few miles, listen for 5 minutes, maybe 10, then pull over, dry heave by the side of the road, and try again. The woman's voice changed on the later recordings. The screaming stopped, it turned into whimpering, the sound of someone running out of battery. "Water," she begged on tape 4. "Please, just water." "Say it first," the man answered, calm, patient, like a teacher waiting for a wrong answer to be corrected. I started forcing myself to hear past the pain. I hunted for noise, background, context. The train horn was the key. It showed up on 3 different tapes, always at the same volume, always the same pattern. 3 short blasts, 1 long. That wasn't random atmospheric noise. That was a schedule. A landmark that maybe I could research. I parked the car 3 blocks away from the public library and walked in. The air conditioning hit me like a wall of ice. I went straight to the bathroom, washed the road grit off my face, and tried to look like a normal, average citizen. The newspaper archives were in the basement. It was quiet and smelled like old dust and vinegar. The microfilm readers were dinosaurs, but they still worked. I started with missing persons reports from June 1997 and then scrolled backwards. The machine whirred and clicked with every turn of the handle. 3 weeks back, I stopped. A name stood out at me. Alice Swanson, 17, still missing. The black and white photo showed a girl with a wide smile. It was a school photo. She was a cheerleader last seen walking home from practice on the east side of town near the industrial rail line. My stomach turned over. The article mentioned search parties, parents begging for a lead, and even a reward. This had to be her. The timing fit, the location fit. The voice on the tape sounded young enough, but it was circumstantial. You can't walk into a precinct with a stolen duffel bag and a hunch. I needed a name. I needed a name of the man on the tape. And the knife was the only physical link that I had. I kept seeing it in my head. The curved blade, the strange, thick handle. It wasn't a weapon for fighting. It was a tool for work. So I walked up to the reference desk. An older woman was sitting there sorting index cards. She looked like she knew everything in the building. Excuse me, I said. Kept my hands in my pockets. I'm trying to identify an old tool. I found it in my grandfather's garage. It's a knife, but the blade is hooked about this long. I traced the shape of it in the air. She didn't even look up from her cards. Farrier knife. I'm sorry, what? Farrier, she said, finally looking at me over her glasses. For horses, trimming the hoof wall and the frog. That's why it's curved. So it's a trade tool? She nodded. Farriers travel farm to farm, shoe horses, trim hooves. It's hard work. The pieces clicked together so hard it almost made me dizzy. It wasn't a murder weapon. It was a trade tool. And trade tools get bought at specific places. Farmers buy feed, farriers buy tool. That's why he was parked at the feed and seed. I walked out of the library and back into the heat. I knew where he shopped. I knew where he traveled. He worked near the train tracks. I wasn't looking for a ghost anymore. I was looking for a guy with a job. A very specific job. I got back to the parking lot just after noon. Not to steal anything this time, but to hunt. Farriers are creatures of habit. They need supplies. They don't buy once and vanish. I figured my guy would be back eventually. I just didn't think he'd be back so soon. To my surprise, the black F-150 sat in the same spot of the parking lot. But this time it looked a little different. Yesterday it was covered in mud. Tonight it gleamed under the streetlights. A fresh car wash, tires shined. Someone had spent hours scrubbing it raw. I circled it a couple times. The doors were locked this time, so no getting in that way. But then I saw it. A magnetic sign slapped on the tailgate. James Johnson, Professional Farrier Services. He wasn't anonymous anymore. The knife, the voice on the tape, the girl in the newspaper, they all had a name now. As I was scribbling the number down on my notebook, I heard the store door chime. I stepped back pretending to check my watch. A man walked out carrying a paper sack. Tall, late 40s, work boots and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His forearms were roped with muscle. His face looked pinched, tight, like he was holding back a scream. He headed straight for the truck, keys jangling. "Nice truck," I said. He stopped, looked at me, eyes hard. "You need something?" "Saw the sign," I lied. "Just wondering if you needed a hand. Day labor. I'm cheap." He didn't answer right away. He looked me up and down, scanning the worn clothes, 3-day stubble, perhaps even caught my scent. He wasn't really seeing a person. He was seeing a drifter, a nobody. "I'm in a hurry," he said. He unlocked the door and tossed the bag in. "I learned fast," I pressed. "Strong back, just looking for cash work." He paused with his hand on the door. The irritation on his face slipped just for a second. He looked at his watch, then back at me. "I got a job out by the county line," he said. 4 horses to shoe. Could use a second pair of hands to hold the lead ropes." My pulse hammered in my ears. The county line. The tracks. "I can do that," I said. "Cash for the afternoon? But we have to go now." "Let me grab my jacket." I walked over to my Civic. My hands were shaking. I opened the trunk and grabbed the stolen farrier knife from the duffel bag and shoved it deep into my boot. This was it. This was the only way to find Alice. I walked back and climbed into the passenger seat of the F-150. The interior didn't smell like leather anymore. It smelled like bleach, sharp and chemical, like a hospital floor. James started the engine. The locks clicked down automatically. "Farm's 20 minutes out," he said. "Near the old rail spur." My stomach dropped. The train horns on the tape. I was so close now. I was so close I could feel it. We pulled out of the parking lot and headed east. I watched the road signs tick by. I memorized every turn, just in case I had to run for my life. The truck tires hummed against the blacktop of the county roads that hadn't been maintained in decades. The air conditioning was humming too, blasting cold air that smelled like chemical cleaner. It was a sealed bubble moving through the summer heat. James drove with one hand on the wheel, relaxed, in control. "Money's better than day labor," I said, trying to fill the silence. "I just want a skill that sticks." James nodded. He didn't look at me. Used to be a respected trade. My old man did it for 40 years. Taught me everything. Now people watch a video from a correspondence course and think they know the job. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel just a little. They take shortcuts, he said. Take what isn't theirs. No consequences. My throat went dry. I gripped the door handle. That happen a lot? I asked. More than it should, his voice hardened. Some things can't be replaced. You work years to build a collection, and someone just comes and takes it, just like that. Collection. He wasn't talking about horseshoes anymore. We hit a stretch of farmland, cornfields on both sides, tall stalks walling us in. No houses, no witnesses. I saw a cassette tape wedged between the seats, Fleetwood Mac, commercial release. You like music? I asked. James glanced at it, a muscle in his jaw twitched. Had that one forever, he said. Lost some tapes recently, the good ones. My blood turned to ice water, the casual way he said it, like mentioning a lost set of keys. That's too bad, I managed. Yeah, irreplaceable. Had sentimental value. I knew then. Beyond any kind of reasonable doubt, I knew it. This was the voice. This was the man that had Alice locked away somewhere. We drove in silence for miles. The fields stretched endlessly. I looked down at the door handle. We were doing 50. If I tucked and rolled, maybe I'd break a collarbone, maybe a leg, but I'd be alive. My hand twitched towards the latch, but if I rolled out, I'd never find the farm. I'd never find Alice. I let go of the handle, stayed in the seat, and put my eyes forward, trying to memorize everything I could see. A moment or two later, James slowed down. He turned onto a gravel road so narrow the brush scraped the sides of the truck. No street sign. No mailbox. Just a dirt trail disappearing into the trees. The gravel crunched under the tires, the sound of rocks being crushed. James turned onto another unmarked road, this one even narrower, even darker. We were officially in the middle of nowhere. The truck stopped in front of the house. The paint had given up years ago, peeling away like dead skin. Behind it stretched acres of nothing. Tall grass, rusting equipment, and outbuildings with sagging roofs. I stepped out of the truck and looked around. There were no neighbors, no passing cars that I could hear. Just the wind rustling the dry fields and the constant rhythmic chirp of crickets. It should have been peaceful, but it felt like a graveyard. Family place, James said. He slammed his door. 3 generations of farriers lived here. I scanned the windows of the building. There were no bars, no heavy locks, no security cameras from the looks of it. Barn's that way, he pointed. Shed's over there. House needs work, but the roof holds. James walked ahead, hands in his pockets, casual, like a tour guide. I followed, keeping a few feet of distance. You got horses? I asked. Not anymore. We walked past a rusted tractor, its wheels sunk to the axles in mud. The whole place felt abandoned. Not sinister, just forgotten. Maybe I was wrong, I thought to myself. The voice could be a coincidence. The knife could just be a tool. But as we walked, the feelings in my gut got heavier. The emptiness felt deliberate. I noticed the path. We were moving in a spiral. Each turn took us further from the truck, further from the road, further from anyone knowing we were here. James kept pointing things out, finding reasons to keep us walking deeper into the property. Water pump needs fixing, he said. His jaw was tight. He wasn't looking at me anymore. I can help with that, I said. I've done plumbing work before. The lie came easy. Stay harmless, stay useful. We passed a collapsed chicken coop, then a woodpile. James slowed down near a small detached shed. It sat 50 yards from the main house. Pretty isolated. Need to grab my tools, he said. He paused at the door, hand on the latch. He stood there for a second, just a beat too long. I didn't even see the swing. I just felt the impact, hard, fast. The ground rushed up to meet me. I hit the dirt face down. the taste of iron filling my mouth. I tried to push up. James drove his knee into the small of my back, forcing the air out of my lungs in a wheeze. Stay down. The voice was different now, flat, dead. The same voice from the tapes. He grabbed my wrist and wrenched them behind my back. Zip. I heard the sound before I felt it. Heavy-duty plastic. A cable tie cinched tight around my wrists, biting into the skin. James, wait, I gasped. If this is about the job, shut up. He didn't even ask about the bag. He didn't ask about the tapes. He hauled me up by my collar and shoved me through the shed door. The room was empty. Just dust dancing in the sliver of light from the window. He pushed me to the floor. He grabbed a coil of rope from a hook on the wall. He looped the rope around my ankles, knotting it tight. Don't move, he said. And then he was gone. The door slammed shut. The lock tumbled. I heard his boots crunching on the gravel walking away. Then the sound of another door opening somewhere else. I pulled against the zip tie, solid, industrial grade. I wasn't going anywhere. Through the thin walls, I heard drawers opening, metal clinking against metal, heavy things being moved. I laid there, cheek pressed against the dirty floorboards, waiting for the interrogation, waiting for him to ask where I hid the tapes, waiting for him to ask who I told. But the questions never came. He hadn't searched me. He hadn't asked about the truck. He hadn't said a word about the bag. The cold truth hit me harder than the punch. I wasn't a loose end he was tying up. I wasn't a witness he needed to silence. I was just his next victim. I tested the zip tie again. No give. The plastic bit deep into my wrists. The rope around my ankles was professional. I rolled onto my side, my shoulder dug into the hard dirt. I bent my knees, inching my bound feet up towards my hands behind my back. I stretched until my fingers brushed leather. I hooked the thumb into my boot and pulled. The knife handle slipped out. I gripped it backwards, but I didn't saw at the plastic. The blade was hooked. A hoof knife is designed to dig in and pull. I slid the hook under the zip tie. I felt the cold steel against the pulse of my wrist. One wrong move and I'd open an artery accidentally. I twisted the handle. The blade bit into the plastic. I pulled hard. Snap. The tie broke. My hands fell free. Blood rushed back to my fingers. I didn't stop. I slashed the ropes on my ankles, and I sat with my back against the wall, the knife gripped tight in my right hand. I waited. 20 minutes later, the lock finally rattled. I stood up. The door swung open. James filled the frame. He saw me standing. He saw the knife. His knife. His eyes went wide, then narrowed. Where did you get that? His voice was flat. Your truck, I said. The same place I got the bag. Recognition washed over his face. Not anger. Understanding. The puzzle pieces clicked into place for him. You're the thief, he whispered. You have my collection. I took a step forward. I raised the knife. Where is she? I demanded. James didn't back down. He stood his ground. He saw the desperation in my eyes and he used it against me. You want the girl? He asked. Tell me where she is. We make a trade. His voice was calm, reasonable. You give me back my property, I give you the girl. I didn't trust him, not for a second, but I needed the location. Show me, I said. Take me to her. And then I get the bag. Then we talk. James smiled. It didn't even reach his eyes. Deal. He backed out of the shed. I followed, keeping 6 feet between us. The knife stayed level with his chest. He led me to a structure behind the main house. It looked newer than everything else. Reinforced door. 3 locks. He opened them one by one. Click, click, click. He swung the door wide. The smell hit me first. Damp earth and stagnant water. Then I saw the wall. Cassette tapes. Hundreds of them. Lined up on metal shelves. A library of screaming and torture and murder. And in the center of the room was a concrete circle. The cover to a well. She's down there, James says. Alive, for now. I pointed the knife at the ladder. You first. James hesitated. That wasn't the deal. Get down there, bring her up. James looked at the knife, then at the ladder. He shrugged like he was doing me a favor. Fine, I'll get her. Then I get my things. He climbed onto the ladder and disappeared into the dark. I heard his boots hit the bottom, a splash, then a low, weak moan. James thought he had won. He thought he was getting his trophies back. Well, he was wrong. I heard a splash, then scraping. James climbed back up the ladder, one-handed. Alice was draped over his shoulder like a bag of feed. Skin stretched tight over bone, hair matted with filth. The smell hit me instantly, stale urine and fear. He set her on the concrete floor. She didn't move, just laid there, breathing in weak, shallow gasps. I stepped forward. Move back. James raised his hands. He smiled that empty, dead smile. We had a deal. I reached for Alice, and that's when he lunged. It was a blur. His fist caught my jaw. The world spun. The knife clattered across concrete. He was on me before I could breathe. Heavy, solid weight. His hands found my throat, squeezing. You're just like her, he hissed. Spittle hit my face, taking things that aren't yours. I thrashed under him, my vision darkened at the edges. My fingers scraped the concrete, searching. James was methodical, the kind you get from a lot of experience. But I was desperate. I bucked hard, threw him off balance just enough to shift his grip. I slammed my knee into his ribs. He grunted. We rolled. We crashed into a metal shelf. A kerosene lantern toppled over. The glass shattered. Fuel splashed across the floor. Across the bottom shelf of tapes, the flame caught with a whoosh. Fire raced along the spill. Neither of us stopped. James pinned me again, his thumbs dug into my windpipe. My hands flailed around on the floor until I found it. My fingers closed around the wooden handle of the farrier knife. I didn't think. I didn't aim. I just stabbed upwards. The blade sank into his side between the ribs. The hooked edge caught meat. James screamed, a wet, tearing sound. His grip loosened. He stumbled backwards, clutching his side. His boots slipped on the fuel-slicked concrete. He flailed, arms windmilling. The edge of the well was right behind him. He fell. Not graceful, not slow motion, just a sudden, heavy drop into the dark, a thud and a splash. I didn't wait. I jumped up and slammed the concrete cover over the opening. The fire was roaring now. Smoke filled the room. The smell was toxic of burning plastic and magnetic tape, years of pain turning into black goo instantly. I ran over and scooped up Alice. She was light, too light. Just skin and bone in my arms. I stumbled out the door, sucking in clean air. I carried her across the property, away from the smoke, away from the well, away from him. The fire ate the building. Black smoke billowed into the sky, blotting out the early evening stars. I sat with Alice under a tree, her head in my lap. I waited until I heard the sirens. The black smoke alerted the fire department. Then the cops came. Then the paramedics. I gave them everything I could. The bag, the knife, the story. They waited for the fire to die down and then searched the ruins hours later. They pried the lid off the well, expecting to find a body. But it was empty. No James. Just muddy water and drag marks leading to an old drainage pipe. A detective sat with me while the EMTs checked my ribs. He looked old, tired, a man who spent way too many nights trying to solve way too many unsolved disappearances. He told me what they found in the duffel bag. I thought it was just jewelry, random things taken from his victims. He told me they cataloged 52 items, 52 distinct pieces, rings, watches, crosses. He believes that there were 52 victims. But now that the tapes are all gone, melted into nothing, and there was no bodies to be found, they found nothing in the property. They even dug up the yard. They dredged the pond. They checked the foundation. There was nothing. Not a piece of bone fragment. Not a piece of any kind of forensic evidence suggesting anyone had died there. James didn't just kill these women. He completely erased them. The trophies were the only proof they ever existed. And now he was erased too. I stood at the edge of the property 2 days later. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze. The kill room was just charred timber and ash. James was still out there somewhere, but there was a federal manhunt for him now. He had nothing. No trophies. No tapes. Nowhere to hide. I turned and walked away towards my car. I didn't take anything from the duffel bag. I didn't keep a single watch or ring. I left with empty hands. But I kept something that wasn't for sale. Myself.